I've spent the last few weeks bringing the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender into Baldur's Gate 3. From Team Avatar to the Fire Nation, I recreated 10 characters using BG3's character creator and a whole lot of cosmetic mods. This is Baldurized, and here's how every one of these characters turned out. Starting, of course, with the Avatar himself, Aang. And Aang is the character I chose to make first, and he's actually where I realized all the Avatar characters are kids, and you can't make kids in BG3. So instead, I lean into making an older version of Aang, one that'll match his version coming out in the movie this month. And I was so excited when I found this mod by Coven Elf that adds in his exact tattoo. And that left us with just a few other details to get right. His eyes are actually gray. I always thought they were brown, and then I give him a bit of top eyeliner and then mute his lip tone to match his skin a bit better. Then for Aang's outfit, I'm focusing on a couple pieces I think really sell his look. One is that shawl that he wears over his outfit, and the other are his monk trousers tucked into the boots. And ultimately, I liked this outfit with the built-in shawl. I thought it was the right shape, and I liked how the colors were landing on it. Then to class Aang, I think we gotta go with Way of the Four Elements monk, but maybe find some mods to add in more wind and earth spells. And with Aang ready to master the four elements, it's time to bring in the first member of Team Avatar to join him, Katara. And Katara's episode really blew up on TikTok and Instagram. It was so cool to see that, and I decided to make a full tutorial for her, so if you're interested in recreating this look, I'll link to that here. But back to her build in this video. After selecting her face and giving her those iconic blue eyes, it's time to move on to the hardest part, which is hair. I was torn between going with her classic braided hairstyle or where she has it messy and down, and ultimately I go with her braided look, especially because I found one that incorporates some beads. And then we can move on to outfit, and again I'm kind of flip-flopping between two looks, one being her fur coat look and the other being her sort of tunic robe combo. But the perfect accessory for either option is the dog collar. It's like a perfect match for the necklace she gets from Gran Gran. And I'm thinking we multi-class her as Life Domain Cleric mixed with the Storm Sorcerer to give her healing and waterbending. Now, of course, you would not catch Katara going anywhere in Faerun without her older brother and resident idea guy, Sokka. And with Sokka, I'd say the biggest challenge for him and the character creator was actually finding a face that felt like a good match. It can definitely be frustrating not having facial sliders to adjust things like eye shape or nose or lips, but that's also what makes this series kind of a fun challenge to see how close we can get. I go with a face from Rox's Heads mod, and I give him blue eyes to match Katara. And I was happy to find a hairstyle in base game that's kind of perfect for him. I just added an extra ponytail section in the back to give it some movement. And then similar to Katara, we could go with the fur coat outfit that we meet him in, or we could go with the travel tunic that he wears later, and I pair this with some layered gloves and leather boots. Then I wanted to find a weapon that represents his boomerang, and I ended up going with this sickle. And for his class, I'm thinking maybe Battlemaster Fighter mixed with Hunter Ranger. And with the Water Tribe siblings together, it's time to add a little earthbending muscle to Team Avatar, and who better than Aang's teacher, Toph Beifong. And if you're enjoying all of these character creations, please like this video and consider subscribing to my channel. I love making these Baldurized videos, and we even have a Discord if you want to share your own creations. Now back to Toph's build. To get her eyes right, I went with Posey Libre's Color Me Blind eye option. And then we can move on to the hardest part of character creation for Toph, which is her hair. This is often the case, and I use a common trick where I layer a base hairstyle with a different set of bangs and some other hair sections like a larger bun and braids. I think this ended up being 4 different pieces total. And then I immediately have to give her a headband, which I use the same trick I did for Captain Jack Sparrow. It's a hat clipping through the hair. And then I'm just looking for outfits that have Toph's essence. I think the green and yellow dyes though are what really sell this look for her. And for classing her, I'm thinking maybe Circle of the Land Druid, but all my class experts please chime in. I don't know which one has the most Earthbender themed spells. And with Toph joining the crew, there's a future Team Avatar member that I wanted to bring into Baldur's Gate, the Banished Prince himself, Zuko. And out of all of the characters in The Last Airbender, Zuko might have the most variety of looks because of his transformational journey, and I had to pick one. But whichever one we choose, we had to start by giving him his burn scar, and luckily there's a mod by BG3 Portraits that adds it to the game. Then I started testing out different hairstyles. I tried out his bald ponytail look that we meet him in, then his shaggy hairstyle look he rocks for most of Avatar, but ultimately I landed on his yassified Fire Lord look because we're making older versions of all these characters. Then moving on to outfit, I'm just looking for garb that's fit for a prince. I'm looking for options that have a V shape from the shoulders down to the torso, and ideally show some of his forearms, but I think this is another case where the colors are going to do the heavy lifting. And I think I'd multi-class Zuko as Draconic Bloodline Sorcerer, Way of the Four Elements Monk, and a few levels in Fighter since he dual-wields scimitars as the Blue Spirit. And of course, you can't have Zuko without the sister who spends so much of the series hunting him down, the Fire Nation's prodigy herself, Azula. And with Azula, the hardest part isn't hair or outfit, it's making her look dangerous. So I tried to make her look sharp enough to puncture the hull of an Empire-class Fire Nation battleship, leaving thousands to drown at sea because she's so sharp. I found a great face from Mantis's preset collection, and while I was disappointed that I couldn't find a mod to get a hold of Shadowheart's hair accessory, I was able to find some nice options of hair pulled back into a bun without a single strand out of place, and then I just combined a different set of bangs and a larger bun. And then for her outfit, similar to Zuko, I'm looking for that kind of V shape for her torso, and I pulled options that could match her travel look, her armored look, and some that look like she's holding court. Then to class her, I think she'd be a multi-class of Draconic Bloodline Sorcerer and Four Elements Monk. Now, Azula is in Faerun, but she rarely works alone, so next up was the first member of her handpicked team, the relentlessly cheerful acrobat, Ty Lee. And if you're enjoying this compilation video, check out one of my other compilations like Lord of the Rings or Critical Role, I'll link that here. But back to Ty Lee, I start with the same face that I used for Katara and then gave her the same gray-brown eyes that I used for Aang. And nobody asked, but Ty Lee's my favorite character in Avatar, and I'd love to hear who yours is in the comments. And to recreate her hair, I find a braid hairstyle that's up in the right spot. It felt like it's the right thickness, and then I just pair that with a different set of bangs. Then for her outfit, I'm prioritizing crop tops, wristbands, capri-length pants, and then I pair that with some slippers that really suit her. I dye everything with a dark red and pink color scheme, and I end up layering in a scarf as the accessory to recreate that V shape. And as for class, I think Ty Lee would make a perfect Way of the Open Hand Monk. And now that Ty Lee's here, we have to round out Azula's trio, and it's time for someone a little less enthusiastic about, well, pretty much everything. It's gonna be May. Sorry, I know. Low-hanging fruit, I had to do it. Won't happen again. Okay, so the hardest part of her build is her hair. But before we get to that, I had to pick out a face that had meh, whatever, energy to it. And I'm gonna link my hair layering mod guide here because I use a lot of pieces for May, and I start by looking for a base style with the right shape or that had bangs or the buns on top. But I end up going fully custom and layering 5 different hairstyles or pieces all together, and I'm really proud of how this one turned out. And then moving on to outfit, I am looking for long, flowy robes that she can hide her daggers in, and especially ones with a high neckline and that V torso shape that a lot of the Fire Nation characters seem to have. Then we go with a dark red and black color scheme, and these scalpels from Act 2 actually work great for her throwing knives. And to class her, I think we just gotta go straight up assassin rogue. And with Azula's trio complete, it's time for a very different kind of Fire Nation representation. Everyone's favorite tea-loving uncle, Iroh. And for Iroh, I decided to make him a dwarf because I like those proportions on him, but kinda ended up with Danny DeVito cosplaying as Iroh. But in my defense, dwarves get way fewer face options to choose from. So consider this my official plea for BG4 to give us facial sliders instead of presets. But after making Aang look sufficiently old, I found some facial hair that was a great shape, although I wish the sides were a bit thicker. And then I'm just looking for hairstyles that are long on the sides and the back, but balding on the top, and I'm going for his earlier look, so I had to give him his little bun because that's where he keeps all of his secrets. And now we're moving on to outfit, and I put this man in I think every single robe of the game, and I just can't help but lean towards the ones that have the flared shoulders. There's something that feels so Fire Nation about them. And I think I'd class him as Draconic Bloodline Sorcerer and Way of the Four Elements Monk. And to close out the Avatar arc, I had to bring in one last member of Team Avatar, Kyoshi Warrior and Master of the War fans, Suki. And if you're curious about how I've been getting all these different outfits and dyeing them different colors, I have a mod video on my page going over my favorite outfit and dye mods. But first, I wanted to try and get a close match to her makeup. I did this by using a stark white skin tone combined with a red face tattoo, black eyeliner, and a dark red lip. After all, I figured if we're making Suki, you would want to see her in her Kyoshi Warrior makeup. And the last detail in character creation is her hair, and I actually found a perfect hairstyle from the base game, no extra layering required. Then for outfit, we're going for her Kyoshi Warrior look, so I give her some soft padded shoes, and then something to represent her headdress, I go with this circlet and dye that gold. And then I just look for pieces with armor over a dress silhouette. And I have to shout out Skirby's Ninja Girl mod, which adds in these dyeable fans. And I think we multi-class her as a fighter and monk. And that wraps up my Baldurized avatar arc. If you'd like to support the channel, you can become a member here on YouTube or check out my sticker shop. I build new characters live here on YouTube every Sunday and Wednesday, and if you want to share your own builds, suggest future characters, or just chat about nerdy stuff, come join us in the Baldurized Discord. Let me know which avatar recreation was your favorite, and I'll see you in the next arc.